Orcas, or more commonly known as killer whales, are highly intelligent and social animals. But these marine mammals are also deadly hunters and hunt in packs called pods. They are extremely powerful. Because of this, they are also known as the wolves of the sea. A male killer whale can grow up to 9.8 meters or 38 feet long. That is almost as high as a four-story building. These monsters can weigh in at 10,000 kgs or 22,000 pounds. That is as much as 1.5 adult elephants. Their dorsal fin can grow up to 1.8 meters or 6 feet high. The females are slightly smaller at 8.5 meters or 28 feet long and weigh as much as 7,500 kgs or 16,500 pounds. Their dorsal fins are curved backwards and reach 1.2 meters or 4 feet in height. Surprisingly, these whales are not really whales at all. They are actually the largest member of the dolphin family. Long ago, ancient sailors called them whale killers after observing them hunt whales, and the name got flipped to the easier killer whale. Their Latin name is Orcinus orca, which when literally translated means of the kingdom of the dead whale. These great hunters are the most abundant mammal on this planet, other than humans, and they were once thought to be ferocious man-eaters. During the 1950s, the U.S. Navy killed off hundreds of orcas. In the 1973 U.S. Navy diving manual, it warned that killer whales will attack human beings at every opportunity. Killer whales are, however, known to be sociable animals and will often swim alongside boats. There has never been a documented fatal attack on a human by an orca in the wild. However, there have been a few cases of a captive orca killing its trainer. This is most likely because of stress. A big animal like that can't be cooped up in a tank, swimming in circles and performing tricks all day without going crazy. These killers have varied diets depending on where they live, and their high intelligence allows them to solve problems that arise as they search for food. This is Patagonia, Argentina. It is the breeding ground for thousands of sea lions. They arrive at the same time every year. So do the whales. You might call it a tradition. It is now the time of year for the sea lion pups to learn how to swim. There's only one place to do that. It is also the time when 5 tons of orca go hunting on land. This strategy is known as intentional stranding. Get it wrong, it could be fatal. This particular whale is the largest male in the area. His name is Mel. At the age of 50 years, he has had plenty time to perfect this skill. He makes a few test runs to test the firmness and angle of the beach. The sea lions just watch curiously. They seem carefree. Maybe they think orcas aren't supposed to go hunting on land. Slowly, Mel creeps in. Then in the blink of an eye, he accelerates to 35 kilometers an hour, or 21 miles an hour, covering 13 meters. He grabs a pup and starts violently thrashing his head to turn around. But once he is off the beach, he doesn't need the pup right away. He carries it out to deeper waters to share with his pod. Like all predators, orcas play with their food. They release their prey and let it make a break for the shore before another killer picks it up and carries it back to deeper waters. Although it seems cruel, these whales may be teaching their young how to hunt for themselves. Another secret weapon the orca uses is its tail fluke. The killer whale flings the poor sea lion high in the air for a home run. Since they are highly intelligent, killer whales have the ability to teach their young, and Mel passes on his hunting tricks to his 2 students, Maga and Valen. They have cleverly adopted his tricks and added their own twist. They work as a team. Maga charges in for the kill, Then Valen comes in and picks up any scattered pups. These masters of the deep have adapted, and almost no marine mammal isn't on the killer whale's menu. In the icy Antarctic waters, these whales try a trick called wave hunting. The orcas have their sights set on a seal sitting in the center of a massive ice floe, but they decide that they don't like the position of the ice. So using brute force, they reposition the 55,000 kilogram ice floe to a better position. Then, the matriarch of the pod swims behind the ice, and using her blowhole, she signals the rest of the whales to charge the ice at their top speed of 55 kilometers an hour, or 35 miles an hour. In amazing synchronization, the orcas swim straight for the ice floe, and at the last possible second, they dive under it, causing a 1 meter high wave to crash on the doom seal and push it into the water, where hungry orcas are waiting. In Norway, killer whales are mostly fish eaters. The fish these whales are after are herring, the human equivalent of a gummy bear. Tasty, but it takes a lot to fill them up. Fortunately, there are thousands of these tiny fish. The orcas swim around the shoal of herring and bunch them into a tight ball. Now they begin making loud calls. They flash their white bellies to scare and bunch up the fish. Once the fish are close enough to the surface, the whales can initiate the final phase of their attack. They slap their massive tail flukes into the center of the shoal to stun the fish. There is plenty of dead or stunned fish for everyone. This sort of feeding is known as carousel feeding. Killer whales are frequently known to attack gray whale calves off the coast of California by jumping on top of the calf and biting it until it gets exhausted and drowns. In South Africa, killer whales mainly prey on their cousins, the common dolphin. Their strategy is simple: exhaust it, injure it, and drown it. In New Zealand, orcas commonly eat stingrays. Looks like a sitting duck, but it isn't defenseless. At the end of that graceful tail is a deadly barb that could easily kill an orca. Surprisingly, the killer whales go straight for the one thing that could kill them. But the orcas have a plan. As one of the orcas carefully holds a tail, another can pick up the stingray and flip it upside down. This sends the stingray into something called tonic immobility. The human equivalent of this would be getting knocked out. This renders the ray helpless, and it starts to suffocate. The orcas take turns swimming around with it until it drowns. Another characteristic of orcas is that they are very generous to their pod. A 10-pound salmon is an easy meal to swallow whole. Yet, any fish caught by one orca is shared with the rest of the pod. As all intelligent mammals, orcas have a highly sophisticated language. It consists of clicks, whistles, and most importantly, echolocation. Like humans, this language doesn't come naturally to them. When a calf is born, it only speaks baby gibberish. Its mother repeats whale words over and over till the calf learns how to speak orca. Apart from their diet, killer whales have many differences depending on where they live. For example, killer whales off the west coast of North America are split up into three subspecies: the residents, the transients, and the offshores. The residents' diet consists mostly of fish and squid. They have tight family bonds and tend to avoid the transients. Their pod size ranges from 5 to 30 animals. These animals don't venture too far from the coast and are not very nomadic in their lifestyle. The transient pods are more nomadic than the residents and tend to avoid them. Transient family bonds are less tight than residents. Their pods consist of 2 to 6 animals, and they mostly eat mammals. As their name suggests, the offshores tend to live further offshore than transients. This type lives in larger pod sizes than their cousins, 20 to 75 animals, and occasionally rising up to 200. Not much else is known about this type of killer whale, since they are very elusive and have only been recently discovered. In Antarctica, there are three major types of orca: Type A, Type B, and Type C. Type A killer whales are the largest and most common type of orca. At the South Pole, these orca tend to feed on minke whales. Type B killer whales are slightly smaller than their cousins and can have a yellow stained eye patch. These whales feed mostly on seals. Type C killer whales are the smallest type of orca in the world. These animals can chase down and hunt fish such as Antarctic cod. These whales also have a yellow stained eye patch, but the patch points distinctively downwards. Also, another type of killer whale has been recently discovered and is appropriately called the Type D killer whale. It is easily recognized by its extraordinarily tiny eye patch. All orcas have habits that get passed along from one generation to the other. We call it culture. One of the strange cultures of the resident populations is something called beach rubbing. Along this coast, the beaches are covered with small pebbles and sand, and the whales love to rub on them. No one really knows why. Some say it is to scrape off dry skin and parasites. But if that was the case, then wouldn't all orca do this? It still is a mystery. Orcas are an apex predator, meaning that they have no natural predators. But are they really top whale in the ocean? They have a contender, the great white shark. It is also an apex predator and an amazing hunter in its own right. It seems pretty evenly matched, but the orca has an advantage. It works in groups, while the shark's a loner. This might slightly tip the scales in favor of the orca. But there's a problem. No one has ever documented a showdown between these deadly hunters before. Until this is the Farallones. This string of islands are located just 27 miles off the coast of San Francisco. It's October 4th, 1997. A group of whale watchers has just seen a couple killer whales that just finished a scrumptious meal of seal and are happily playing around the boat. Suddenly, a great white appears. The shark swims in the direction of the whales. One orca suddenly makes a beeline for the shark. There's a giant splash, and then nothing. The whale resurfaces to take a breath. The everyone's surprise, the killer whale is carrying the shark upside down in its mouth. By holding the shark upside down, the shark goes into tonic immobility. In 15 minutes, the fight is over, and the orca lets the shark sink to the bottom. The mutilated great white's liver floats to the surface, and the orcas share it with each other. The hundreds of other great whites in the area immediately flee, proving that these formidable predators can just be a great crowd of cowards, and the killer whales claim the ocean's throne as top predator. But are we more intelligent than the wolves of the sea? We like to think so. But this pot of orcas are trying to prove us wrong. In the Mediterranean, it's summertime. It is also the time when the giant bluefin tuna make their yearly migration from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. Each year, the fishermen are waiting. So are the orcas. A fish like this could fetch the crew $2,000. Concrete blocks are used to take the bait down to the depth of 200 meters. Once a fish is caught, the fishermen work as quickly as they can to reel in the fish. The killer whales just bide their time. By the time the tethered tuna reaches the surface, it is far too exhausted to fight back. Within minutes, the deep-sea pirates have stripped the carcass and leave the fishermen to reel in the remains. There are at the most 50,000 orcas left in the wild, 25,000 in the Antarctic, 8,500 in the tropical Pacific, 2,250 in the Northeast Pacific, 1,500 off Norway, and 2,300 in Japan. These few killer whales are currently considered endangered according to the U.S. Endangered Species List, although the International Union for Conservation of Nature lists it as data deficient. It is not a main target for whalers, but the reasons for declining population include diminishing sources of prey such as salmon, poisons being introduced into their environment such as PCBs, oil spills, collisions with boats, and live capture. Their slow reproduction rate may also contribute to their decline. A female can only give birth every 5 to 10 years. Although failed intentional strandings are not playing a big part in orca decline, there are a number of strandings every year around the world. Fortunately, mass strandings, which means more than 3 animals being stranded together, is not common, but it can have a serious effect on orca populations. For example, in 2014, 9 killer whales were mass stranded in New Zealand. That is 5% of New Zealand's orca population. If these animals go extinct, it could affect many other animals around the globe. For example, if there is nothing to prey on the seals, their populations would soar and the seals' prey would dramatically decrease. Currently, there are many people trying to protect these magnificent mammals, but not all ideas work. For example, fishermen try using all sorts of devices to stop the whales from stealing their catch, such as acoustic harassment devices, electric currents, rubber bullets, bubble screens, and reducing the sounds caused by fishing operations. This would reduce the number of killer whales killed by fishermen who tried to stop them from stealing their livelihood. It, however, does not stop orcas, who are willing to hunt the same prey item for hours on end without giving up. Some other efforts that may help bring killer whale populations up include salmon restoration efforts, cleaning up contaminated orca territory, releasing captive orcas, and conducting further research to save the wolves of the sea from extinction.